In this lesson, we'll learn about the principle of follow-through and overlapping action. So let's go ahead and get started. So we've got a simple animation here that I want to share with you. It's just an arm kind of rising up here and pointing. And while the action itself is very clear and direct, it's also very rigid and robotic. So why is that? Well, it's a couple of factors. The biggest one is that everything is ending at the same time. Okay? If you scrub through your timeline view down here and you stop at frame 20, you can see how everything stops together. And things in life, especially with characters, when you study people or animals or insects, when something comes to a stop, it just doesn't go into a frozen state. Okay, there's other things that are still kind of moving. Everything doesn't stop in unison. And that's what we have here for this example. So by thinking about follow through and overlapping action, we can really loosen this up and just add a lot of fluidity to it. So let's kind of focus on the upper arm and forearm. Basically, if you look over here in the layers section of our timeline view, you can see the hierarchy arrangement that we have, but basically this arm is composed of three different pieces: the upper arm, forearm, and the hand. So if we scrub through right around frame 13, we hit that extreme pose where this is kind of its maximum pose that it goes into, the maximum point it reaches before it goes forward. And you can see that I've got the upper arm and the forearm both stopping right there at the same time. And so I don't want to do that. That's contributing to this robotic feel. So I want to maybe take the keyframe that I have for the forearms peg, and I may want to go ahead and just offset that by even just one frame, okay? So what we're doing here is incorporating some overlapping action, and this is where you have a body part or body parts that are moving at different rates, okay? And then even here at the end, I may want to take the keyframe for the forearm and just offset it. So once that upper arm, if you watch the upper arm, once it reaches its final position, the forearm is still moving. It's going at a different rate. It's ending at a different time. Okay? So we're on our way to really loosening up this animation and making it more fluid. However, it still feels very rigid. And that's because the hand is the next thing we really want to tackle. And you can see how it stays fixated with the forearm. So let's go ahead and remedy that. We're going to be using the hand's respective peg. I'm going to use the rotate tool here, and we're going to do a little animation for the hand. On frame 1, I've already recorded its position with a keyframe, but we'll come forward, say, to about frame 8. And I'm going to rotate that hand forward, right about there. Okay. So what we're doing here is we're creating a little bit of drag, and this is really kind of a third related technique that you may want to kind of think about when you talk about or think about follow through and overlapping action. But this is basically where you have a part of the body that is taking a little bit of time to kind of catch up. Okay, and so we've got this hand kind of dragging behind, right? And then as we kind of come forward here, right as we get to that maximum point, we might have that hand finally kind of straighten out. And you notice how I'm kind of offsetting it from the forearm. So by the time the forearm reaches, that hand finally kind of reaches that its final point. And then as we come forward, we'll go ahead and add some more drag to the hand. And already I can tell how we're starting to loosen everything up. And then I'll go ahead on frame 21, straighten that hand out. But now, let's go ahead and actually click play. That's feeling okay. We can see that drag in there is helping a little bit. But this is where we really want to get that follow through in now. Okay, so this means that a separate part of the body, it's going to continue moving after another part has stopped. Okay, and so what I'd like to do is come forward an additional couple frames. We'll kind of move that hand down just a little bit. Another couple frames. Move it up just slightly. Let's check this out. So that feels so much better. It's just loosened up a lot more. So now you can see how it doesn't feel as rigid, especially with the hand. That hand is such a contrasting element to the rest of the arm. It just sticks out to my eye very clearly. But just having that little bit of extra movement there at the end loosens everything up. Okay? And so again, that's kind of the follow-through aspect. It just means that a separate part of this body, meaning this arm, is continuing to move after the rest of it is stopped, after the arm has stopped, okay? The overlapping action, just to kind of recap what that is, it's where the different parts are moving at different rates, okay? And so that's where we were kind of adjusting those keyframes. And then think about kind of that third related term, which is drag, right? And this is where a part of this object, or this arm here, is taking a few frames to just catch up. So that's kind of why we're dragging that hand behind there. Okay? All right. So kind of feel free to break this down. The project file for the finished version of this, now that we've gone through it here, will be 06_end. Okay? I want to show you another example that we can kind of work through here just to kind of nail this whole concept of follow through and overlapping action home. So this is an example that we worked on for our lesson on straight ahead and pose to pose. So basically our little character here fainting. And so what I'd like to do is kind of here at the end maybe think about having maybe that leg right there, maybe his back leg, fall after the rest of the body has already hit the ground. We already have a little bit of this current principle that we're talking about kind of working in here, just in the way that the body makes initial contact there. So the entire body just doesn't hit the ground completely in unison. His head hits first, and then his body starts to kind of land there. So we've got basically some overlapping action that's happening here, where different parts of his body are moving at different rates. Okay. But I think we could get some follow through in there with his leg. So what I want to do is on this last frame here, I'm just going to take my cutter tool, select everything, Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. Let's go ahead and try and copy that one more time. I think I hit the wrong keyboard shortcut. There we go. Okay. And F5, I'll extend that exposure. So what I'll do, he's coming down here, and I want to think about maybe right here. Instead of having this leg already planted, I'm going to erase it. And so it might look something like this. And I can always kind of come in and clean it up, make it a little bit more perfect if I want. But something like that, okay? So he makes contact his whole body, and then we got one last element that's still moving. All right? I'll zoom out here just a little bit. I can kind of play this, see what it looks like. All right? So that ending there doesn't feel as abrupt. And if you wanted to go further with it, to really kind of add some more of this, we could think about him having, some hair, a little tuft of hair or something like that coming over in that first frame. As he comes back, we're going to have that drag that I was kind of talking about. So that hair is kind of dragging behind. If he comes forward, it'll look something kind of like that. Same thing right here. And now that his body, we're starting to get that overlapping action, that head is starting to settle, that hair will actually start to fling forward, okay? So that's where we're getting kind of that follow through in there as well. And we could even kind of do a little bit of, you could probably think about doing a little bit of movement with the hair just there at the end if you wanted. You know, you just kind of play around, kind of experiment with it. I kind of did that pretty quick, but you can kind of start to get the idea what we're talking about right there, kind of getting some additional movement. Okay? So, you know, just to recap, the follow-through, and I kind of mentioned this, we'll go ahead and recap it one more time. The follow-through action, that just means that different parts of the body will continue moving even after others have stopped. So that's kind of our follow-through action, kind of right there with that leg. Okay? The overlapping action is where you have different parts moving at different rates. Okay? So that head kind of makes contact right there. It's finished its journey, and then the body is now, the torso is moving, getting ready to come down, and then we have the legs coming down at different rates as well. So that back leg. And then drag is basically where you have one part that's just kind of trying to catch up, kind of trying to fall behind. And that's what we have basically with the hair there. Okay, so just kind of drawing all, explaining all those, thinking about them, how they work together in unison, and how you can start to use these with some of these other principles. You'll find to be very beneficial. So feel free to kind of just scrub through this. This is just 7 different drawings here. You don't have to have a lot of drawings to convey any of these principles really. You can do it in a minimal amount of drawings to kind of start to see if it's something that will really work for whatever animation it is that you're trying to create there. Okay. All right, so in our next lesson, we're going to talk about slowing in and slowing out as our next principle. So stick around. We'll see you then.